I didn't choose blockchain. I would say blockchain chose me. My first thought was, I read through it, I thought it was pure genius. But also, I thought at the time, I'm like, you know what? U.S. government's going to shut this down. There's no way they're going to allow Bitcoin, something like a Bitcoin, to survive. You couldn't even say blockchain. You could say distributed ledger technology, because blockchain was equivalent to Bitcoin, which was equivalent to things that were nefarious. Once I understood Bitcoin, I looked at Ethereum, and that's where I really understood smart contracts. And once I understood smart contracts and I dug into it, I really saw the potential. And I saw the potential for everything that's happening now. It's bigger today than I'd ever imagined, but I saw the possibility for how you could move assets, how you could move money. Right now, we're sitting at about, I think it's 21 billion as of today in tokenized assets. So we're going to go from 21 billion, according to Standard Charter's latest report, is by 2034, we're going to be at like 30 trillion. That's a big, massive difference. If you draw that on a chart, it looks like an exponential. XDC is going to, I believe, and it's the reason I'm sitting here and the reason I chose to work with XDC, it's going to get a big chunk of that 30 trillion in tokenized assets.
What a time to be alive, and it's all happening right now.
Hey, what's going on, family and friends? Here's an interview with Ken Chapman, the head of U.S. at the XDC Network. I interviewed Ken at their headquarters in Dubai during my travels around the Token2049 conference in Dubai, the largest crypto conference in the UAE. Ken is an absolute legend. He's not only a visionary, but he's a former veteran who's still fighting for something bigger. He mentioned that XDC is staring down the barrel of a $30 trillion market, tokenizing real-world assets, including stablecoins. Following our interview, Ken gave me a couple of XDC hats to give away on my channel. To enter the raffle, you need to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and comment "Love you mucho" below. This giveaway only applies to US residents. I'll be sure to call out 2 winners this Friday. So without any further ado, let's play that interview. Thanks for tuning in. Love you mucho.
What's going on, family and friends? We're here in Dubai for Token2049. I'm at the XDC Network's headquarters, and I've got none other than the head of U.S., Ken Chapman. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm privileged to be here. We're at your headquarters, so thank you, sir. And it's been quite the experience. We've been tacking alongside each other for the past few weeks. I saw you at the Digital Fusion Summit. Before that, at Tokenize This in New York.
We did.
And now here in Dubai. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We've been bouncing around together for the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, it's been quite the exciting time for the space, and specifically for XDC. But for those in the audience who may not be familiar with XDC Network, and you as well being a leader in the space, let's kick things off with a little bit about your background and how it led you into crypto.
Sure. My background is I served in the U.S. Army, and after serving in the U.S. Army, I have 20 years of capital markets experience. I've worked both on the buy side and the sell side. And in traditional finance, I've worked in a number of firms to include J.P. Morgan in investment management, Bank of America in equity derivatives, Bridgewater Associates, which is the largest hedge fund in the world, and BNY Mellon, which is the largest traditional custodian in the world. I left traditional finance and moved into DeFi full-time in 2018. Started my own consulting and investment practice, T10 Ventures at that point in time, and started my first startup in crypto, Cryptofuse. Launched Cryptofuse at the London Blockchain Expo in 2018. Had a really fantastic team, and the concept with that company and that project was that you have blockchain, and you, but the weakness with blockchain or any blockchain is it only works. The peer-to-peer transaction only works if you have access to the internet. And so this was solving for how do you have a peer-to-peer transaction and have many of the same benefits of the blockchain, but do it without the internet. And so this company was solving for that. 2018 was back when there were still ICOs, or initial coin offerings. We were doing an ICO. And just as luck would have it, a couple of weeks prior to the ICO launch, the SEC came out with their guidance that they were applying the Howey test. And as it turns out, when you apply the Howey test, what we were doing, we were clearly a security. And we had a very good securities attorney that was part of our team. And he came out and said, guys, this is clearly a security. I do not recommend you going forward. And in the United States, in some institutions, prisoners wear orange. And I would not look very good in Prison Orange, and because I wouldn't look good in Prison Orange, I made a decision that I shouldn't go forward. So I didn't go forward. The rest of the team didn't go forward. We did put the company through the Wharton's Entrepreneurial Acceleration Program. It came out as one of the top companies in that program. But even with that, after not being able to raise capital through the ICO, that company floundered and we actually closed that company down. From there, I went to Wells Fargo and led tokenization and crypto at Wells Fargo, even though Wells Fargo was, at the time, was very much anti both blockchain and crypto. Even saying blockchain at Wells Fargo at the time, you couldn't even say blockchain. You could say distributed ledger technology because blockchain was equivalent to Bitcoin, which was equivalent to things that were nefarious. But in 2020, Bitcoin really took off. And so there were customers, high net worth customers wanted access to Bitcoin specifically, came up with ways to do that through providing exposure, not directly providing Bitcoin, but providing exposure. And then also other ways of providing access to digital assets. And one of the solutions that I was working on was I don't know if you remember back in that period of time, is there was this guy, Michael Saylor, that came out that MicroStrategy, nobody saw this coming. I was in the industry. I didn't see it coming. Went out there and acquired Bitcoin for his corporate treasury. Publicly traded company. Didn't even know you could do that. So he went out and did that, and he's still doing it to this day.
I think there was recent news that he purchased another 15,000 Bitcoin, totaling a few billion in value. So he's doubling down.
Yep, he's rocking along. And during that period of time, so Michael Saylor went and did that. And then a guy named Jack Dorsey from Square came along, goes, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So he went and acquired a big chunk of coin for his corporate treasury. And then our favorite guy come along, hold my beer, Elon Musk. He went and acquired over $1 billion for Tesla. And then all of a sudden, we're in a situation where you have companies that have significant holdings in their corporate treasury on their balance sheet. And even if you're not going to use the Bitcoin for collateral for a loan, even if you're just going to consider holding or consider Bitcoin when you're considering the credit worthiness of the company, this is an exaggeration for effect. You can't have the private keys on Elon Musk's thumb drive. It has to be somewhere that's both mutually acceptable to the company and to the bank. And so I went around looking for a custody solution. I looked at Wells Fargo being the custodian, looked at the names that you would imagine, looked at...
I'm sure JP Morgan.
Yeah, and then looked at Fireblocks, I looked at Copper, I looked at every solution out there that could be integrated in-house. Then I looked at a third-party option, looked at BitGo, Anchorage, and every other option that was available at the time. Ended up choosing Anchorage because it had the same regulator as Wells Fargo. And Anchorage, as you may know, is the first nationally chartered crypto bank in the United States. And by the way, is still the only one in the United States.
So you must have had a good time brushing elbows with Ben Hearn, the executive at Anchorage Digital at the Digital Fusion Summit we were just at.
Did, yeah. We sat on the same table together with Jake. So right there on the same table. And so in choosing Anchorage as the best choice, I ended up, not only was the best choice, it ended up being the best choice for me for my next opportunity. So I ended up going to Anchorage, and I was the head of banking and capital markets at Anchorage. And at the time, Anchorage was, unlike today, where it's pretty much within the crypto industry, it's a household name. At the time, it wasn't that well known. And so I was able to join Anchorage as an early employee and be a part of Anchorage as it became a unicorn, and was with Anchorage up until the end of 2022. And after Anchorage, I worked with a number of companies, including Link2,
my former employer.
Yeah, that you were a part of. And so we were there together for a period of time. And then most recently, early this year, joined XDC. And so that's my journey.
What a colorful journey.
A lot of ups and downs in that period, and a lot of excitement. Even though I've given you a long-winded answer, that's covering about an 8-year period, and it's covering a couple of crypto winners in there, and it's covering a couple of really great highs and a lot of great lows, and there's a couple of yacht parties and Versace mansions thrown in there, and there's some tears and there's a lot of things thrown in there that's mixed into that answer.
And a lot of traveling as well.
A lot of traveling. I'm traveling quite a bit these days.
And understand that these networks are global, and it's par for the course, it seems.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for sharing your colorful background with me. There's no doubt why you are the head of U.S. for XDC Network. Now, with that being said, let's talk about what drew you to blockchain. What is it about blockchain tech that captured your attention? And then taking this up further, what specifically about XDC is just driving you around this world?
Well, I'll start on the blockchain part. I didn't choose blockchain. I would say blockchain chose me. I was at Bridgewater at the time, which again, as I mentioned, is the world's largest hedge fund. And the leadership of Bridgewater had come out and asked, what is blockchain and what does that mean to our business? And that question came to me in my role, and I didn't know the answer. I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I reached out to the large consulting companies, and there were people that were experts in blockchain, people that were experts in hedge funds and how hedge funds work, but nobody could give me an answer. And so I'm like, okay, I need to give a good answer, because anybody that knows Bridgewater, you can't
fake it till you're me.
You can't fake it till you make it at Bridgewater for sure. If you want to go read the principles, you'll see why not. We drug in a room, they'll slap on the videotape and they'll diagnose you. And I went to figure it out myself. And back then, there were no college courses. There's no books or anything like that on it. So I went back to the very beginning and I read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. And my first thought was, I read through it and I thought it was pure genius. But also, I thought at the time, I'm like, you know what? U.S. government's going to shut this down. There's no way they're going to allow Bitcoin, something like a Bitcoin, to survive. I was proven wrong. So we're sitting here in 2025. But then so I went through it and I got a really solid understanding of Bitcoin, how Bitcoin worked. But this was around the time that Enterprise Ethereum had come out. And so that's what I really needed to understand, because that was the question I was being asked. It was, how does this impact the business of Bridgewater? And once I understood, because I had to understand Bitcoin to understand Ethereum. So once I understood Bitcoin, I looked at Ethereum, and that's where I really understood smart contracts. And once I understood smart contracts and I dug into it, I really saw the potential. And I saw the potential for everything that's happening now. It's bigger today than I ever imagined, but I saw the possibility for how you could move assets, how you could move money using this technology. And that's where I got jazzed about it. Back at around the 2016 timeframe, I really saw this as being the future. So that's what got me excited. And from 2016 to 2018, I had my day job, but then on the side, I was really researching and learning as much as I could. And ultimately, 2 years later, jumped into it full time. But then answer your question now about XDC, is one of the things that I've done repeatedly in my career, and it's what I like to do, is I like to go after, be a part of teams and be a part of opportunities where I think fantastic potential, maybe a diamond in the rough, but everything is there. It's just hasn't reached its full potential. And I did that when I left the Army, when I joined Perot Systems, which was Ross Perot's company. That company did fantastic from when I joined until when I left. Anchorage Digital is another example. I'm still a shareholder. I'll be happy when that company finally exits. Here I am with XDC. And what I saw in XDC, once I started really digging into it, I looked at the technology, and the technology is amazing. It's fast, low cost, energy efficient. Everything that was being promised by the technology is really there. And then also there's a good team behind it. And it wasn't created by a couple of guys in their basement. It was created by Atul and Rakesh founders. It was created by serious business people for a serious business purpose from the ground up. It's ISO compliant, and it has everything it needs to be suitable for the global financial system. And so when I dug into it, and one of the things that was, being in the United States, I had not heard of it, didn't know much about it. And so for me, I'm like, you know what? This is really a diamond in the rough here. But when I started digging into it, I wanted to be a part of it. I looked at it and I said, you know what? This XDC, it's better than these other protocols that I'm very familiar with. And these other protocols out there that I am familiar with, some of them have weaknesses. Some of them are being used for purposes like tokenization, but some of these, they're failing or having outages, various other weaknesses that XDC can address. I see this as the next opportunity to be a part of something great, where I'm getting in at a point, not really the ground floor, because it was founded in 2017 and went live in 2019. So I'm not part of the early part, but I'm here at an inflection point where a lot of great things have happened in the past year. It really has accelerated really fast in the past year. And I want to jump on it as it continues to accelerate.
Yeah, let's talk about the future growth potential for XDC, being the fact that you are head of U.S., what type of opportunities are we talking about? And let's draw a comparison over the past few years. What's different? Like you just mentioned, XDC has been a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
What's going to accelerate or make XDC a household name?
I'll just take one visit. There's a lot of different parts and pieces to it because it's used for a number of different areas, from trade finance to tokenization to other purposes. And so for the purpose of this conversation, because I know we're a little bit limited on time, I'll just talk about tokenization. And I'll talk about just this year because we have some exciting things going on just this year. Is that just back in February, there was an announcement came out that in partnership with Archax, and again, this is BlackRock, Fidelity, State Street, Aberdeen partnered with Archax to deploy money market funds. And in that partnership, the blockchain that was used was XDC. And we're starting to see XDC being used by, again, being used, but more and more. And then Archax has been a European specific company, and it's an exchange, but Archax just bought Global Cap in the United States, which is a broker dealer in the United States. And so they're making a move into the US. So we can really see opportunities like that being replicated in the US. And then in addition, XDC already has a partnership with Securitize. Anybody who's doing anything with tokenization in the US is aware of Securitize. And XDC is a partner with Securitize. And that's something I didn't even know when I first started looking into XDC. I wasn't even aware of that partnership, and aware that they had done business together and already had a fund already out there.
Wow. Securitize is busy, and great to hear that XDC is facilitating the tokenization for one of the largest issuers.
And another big one that got announced this year as well is in conjunction with a company, LIQI, which is a company that's doing a lot of great work down in Brazil, and this is going to be a big add to the value on chain, as another 500 million in value on chain to XDC in Brazil over the next very short period of time here. There's a lot happening, and that's all just recent period activity.
Is this breaking news?
No, this is not breaking news. This has all been announced.
Okay.
But that's the reason that I'm getting out and about, and the reason I'm doing podcasts like this, and the reason I'm walking around. And if you see me walking around at any event, I'm walking around like NASCAR. If you see me walking around at any event, I'm going to have XDC on me, because that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is get the word out. So everything that I'm telling you has already been announced. There's already been press releases on it. I'm trying to make sure that gets amplified out.
By virtue of this interview, I'm sure that we'll achieve that. Now, with all the progress going on in the market, let's talk about how regulations are going to impact XDC and the market itself. We've got the stablecoin regulations coming in the fold, the market infrastructure bill. How are the regulations going to impact XDC?
I'll talk about how the stablecoin bill and the market structure bill is going to impact the overall ecosystem. Then I'll talk about how XDC fits into that.
And then also, I've been hearing some news about Coinbase. Is there something going around?
Yeah, I'll add that. There's a Crips and a Bloods kind of thing going on there within the crypto world when it comes to that. So the stablecoin bill is going to add more clarity around what it means to issue a stablecoin, what the requirements are specifically around the reserves for a stablecoin. And so what that's going to do, it's going to make financial institutions more comfortable around issuing, because they're going to have very clear guidance on what they have to do. But also, not only going to see financial institutions like banks issuing stablecoins, but you're also going to see more stablecoins being issued by non-banks. And so I think we're going to go through a period of a lot of various stablecoins out there. And I think we're going to see a Darwinism period where there's going to be a ton of various stablecoins out there. And then over time, it's the ones that are useful and the ones that get adopted are the ones that survive, and the ones that don't just go away. But where XDC fits into that, because of XDC being a platform that is very useful when it comes to being fast and inexpensive to operate on, stablecoin issuers are going to be looking for, because when you have a stablecoin, just by the nature, especially if you have a stablecoin that's not interest bearing, you don't want to have a lot of drag or friction caused by fees. So you're going to want to find a platform that's not going to be expensive. And so I think that you're going to find more and more coin issuers are going to want to go to XDC just because of that. It's reliable. It's fast, it's inexpensive, so that's going to be the draw. And so I see a lot more of these stable coins are going to move naturally to XDC just for that reason. So we're going to benefit. XDC will benefit from that. And then from the market structure bill, that's going to provide more clarity from a legal perspective. What is a token? And then also from a jurisdiction perspective, does the SEC have jurisdiction? Does the CFTC have jurisdiction? And that's the commodities regulator. In the past, what the token issuers were running into is sometimes they run into one of two situations. Either the SEC and the CFTC were battling over who had jurisdiction, or they were both claiming they didn't, and it fell in the middle. And that's going to solve that.
Then you get that Wild West moment.
Yeah, no kidding. And so right now, it seems highly likely that the stablecoin bill will pass in this session of Congress. You have Chairman Hill on the House side and Senator Scott on the Senate side that are both championing this, and they both have enough clout to be able to get that through. And then on the market structure bill, looks like that will pass as well. And so what kind of the controversy that's going on right now, and it's pretty much the crypto industry, for the most part, wanting, they're two separate bills right now going through separately. Pretty much certain the stablecoin bill goes through, almost certain. And then pretty good probability the market structure bill goes through. Coinbase has come out and said, you know what, combine them both. Their rationale is they think it's a better possibility that both pass this session if they're combined. And Coinbase is worried that if they're still separate like this, that the stablecoin bill will pass, because everybody's pretty certain that will pass. And if it passes and gets signed into law, then this market structure bill will hang out there, and it probably would pass, but the probability is not high enough of a probability, and it may not make it this session. So they're worried about it not making, because in their business, being an exchange, that bill, the market structure bill, is more important to them than the stablecoin bill. So they'd prefer to combine it so they get the bill that means more to them. So Coinbase has sent lobbyists up to the Hill to try to get that done, which has got other lobbyists from other camps going up there. So basically, what you have on Capitol Hill is you have two opposing groups of crypto lobbyists. And I don't know if this has ever happened before, because usually we have crypto lobbyists. They're all kind of lobbying for the same thing. But this is kind of the first time you've had two camps of crypto lobbyists up there lobbying for two different things. But we'll see how it pans out. I think regardless, this is my view. And my view is whether they're separated or together, I think they pass this session. But it's all around probabilities and level of comfort on whether they're separate or together is what the angst is right now.
So what we're talking about is the regulations, one defining stablecoin, who can issue stablecoins, and also the banks custodying digital assets, basically for the customers. What a time to be alive, and it's all happening right now. With that being said, looking into the future, with the regulations coming into the fold, with $30 trillion in tokenized assets coming on chain, with, as mentioned, banks custodying digital assets, where do you envision XDC situated in this matured landscape?
Being fast, low cost, energy efficient, and then throw in built for financial institutions with being ISO compliant, being in early in a number of trade associations, and XDC is going to be right in there and going to be in the forefront and take advantage of a number of these opportunities as tokenization happens, because right now we're sitting at about, I think it's 21 billion as of today in tokenized assets. So we're going to go from 21 billion, according to Standard Charter's latest report, is by 2034, we're going to be at like 30 trillion. That's a big, massive difference. If you draw that on a chart, it looks like an exponential. And so when you do that, some of these public blockchains that are out there, even if you're not using it as a public chain, even if you're taking some of these public chains and you're using the permissioned subnet, they're not going to be able to handle it. And so you're going to need blockchain technology like XDC to be able to handle that level of transaction, that level of, and then also you're going to have, when you're talking about the financial system, you have to have stability, you have to have reliability, and also you have to have what's called finality. What finality means is that the transaction's done. And with XDC, you have all of that, and you have, within just a couple of seconds, you have the transaction is complete, it's final, you have finality. Like I mentioned before, XDC wasn't created by a couple of guys in the basement. It was created by serious business people for business purpose. And that, plus being a solid business purpose platform, XDC is going to, I believe, and it's the reason I'm sitting here and the reason I chose to work with XDC, it's going to get a big chunk of that 30 trillion in tokenized assets.
Wow. That we're talking about a ton of value. That's going to be wonderful for the XDC network and for those that are participating in XDC's growth potential. As we wind down this interview here, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to maybe get inside the brain of Ken Chapman, sir. I'm sure your children are very proud of you. You're a veteran, sir. Being a business leader who's traveling all over the world, coming from traditional finance, diving in headfirst into DeFi, what's something that you've learned about yourself throughout this lifelong journey?
I would say just from being in crypto, it's, if anything, it's perseverant. And anybody that's been in it for any period of time, I've been doing this full time since 2018, and I've gone through a couple of crypto winners, so good times, bad times, but sticking with it and believing in a vision. And that's what's kept me going, is believing that this technology is the future and having faith. And then also when things get tough and you go through the crypto winners, instead of just sitting it out, that's the time to build and to reinforce. And then when times are good, that's not the time to kind of let your guard down and just party. You do a little bit of that. There's some fun in there. You want to have some fun, but also you want to remember, because you've gone through the tough times, that, hey, tough times could be around the corner again. Mm-hmm. So you, almost like the squirrel getting ready for winter, you put some of the nuts aside because you want to make sure that you can have enough resources that if you have to go through another one, I'm hoping that we don't have to do that again. I'm not counting on that. I'm counting on maybe this is the cycle we live through, but because right now we're going through some good times, and I'm enjoying what we're going through right now, and going to take full advantage of it. But again, it's perseverance. And when we get there is when we no longer talk about tokenization. When tokenization is it's just the way things are done, and there's no more tokenization conferences. There's no more tokenization podcasts. It just doesn't exist anymore, because it's just how the financial system works. And we just all just go do something else, or retire, or we'll go off to the next great thing, or let's go tell stories about the good old days or something. But that's when we arrive, is when tokenization is not talked about anymore.
That makes sense. We're not having conferences about the internet or podcasts about the internet these days.
Or we're not having podcasts on TCP/IP.
Ken, this has been a wonderful opportunity to brush elbows with you here at the XDC Network's headquarters in Dubai. The good times are happening, and they're happening right now, sir.
And this week especially.
Yeah, most definitely. For those in the audience who would care to follow you as a leader in this space, what's your go-to channel or means of connecting with your community?
Okay, it's really easy for me. So the two I use the most are LinkedIn and X, formerly Twitter. On LinkedIn, if you just search my name, Ken Chapman, I'll be the first one that pops up. And if you go to X, formerly Twitter, my handle is my name, Ken Chapman, and I'm right there.
I'll make sure that following this interview that your handles and your socials are copied in the description and comment section below. Ken, this has been a privilege, and hopefully I see you sooner rather than later on the other side of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate you, sir. Thank you for sharing time with me.
Thanks.
Boom.